Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review another movie to celebrate Sharon Tate. And as you guys know, I want to watch everything she's ever done so that I can celebrate her and pay tribute to her. And this movie is just something where she was an extra in the movie, which means she's not even really in the opening credits. She is on IMDb for the film, though, as an extra. So anyways, this movie is the second Barabbas movie that I watched this year. The first movie was obviously Give Us Barabbas. And it was a movie that I watched for Richard Thomas week, or million year lifetime. Because, who doesn't want to just watch Richard Thomas movies for the rest of their lives? Richard Thomas is just, he's the man. He's, as I said, I would fully be open to starting a Richard Thomas cult where we all celebrate Richard Thomas and we watch his movies, and we all probably look like the creeps in Stalking Laura, and we all dress up in that shitty ass costume that he wore, where he had that blue jacket and things, and we all shake our heads and have what did he eat in that movie? The number 26 turkey with cheese is the best sandwich with Diet Coke with lots of ice. Everyone will just eat that all day, worship Richard Thomas. Okay. Sorry to get so off track. I just can't help myself when it comes to Richard Thomas. So anyways, Give Us Barabbas was pretty good. It had one of the best performances I've ever seen from the guy who played Barabbas in that movie. For the poor quality that the movie had, he kicked ass, and he really destroyed all expectations. And it had some very emotional scenes because it's this character. He has such a potential for greatness, for great story, because he's the person who was spared being crucified while Jesus had to go off and get crucified. And he was spared because he told his followers to spare him and to cast their vote for anyone who isn't him, so that he can take the brunt of the pain and then everyone else can, get a second chance. That's his idea. And so he takes the punishment and Barabbas gets spared. And, that's just, he is a badass character. Him and Jesus, obviously. They're both, these badass characters. And I feel personally, Barabbas he's number one. He is the greatest character of this film, Give Us Barabbas. Because Jesus isn't even really in it at all. He's in Barabbas a little bit, and so we'll get to that. And so Give Us Barabbas, he is the star of the film, his character arc, the emotional scenes he has, very, very good. There's a scene where he goes to the area where he was crucified, and he talks to a Roman soldier, and the soldier tells him all about what he saw, and it was really kind of eerie and sad, and it was such a great scene. And but the movie, it had the feeling of a cheap stage play. It did not look very good. Now let's get to Barabbas. Just Barabbas is the Barabbas. That's the title of the movie. Barabbas. Barabbas. Barrel bass. No, not barrel bass. This movie, it is an epic. And it has basically 3 sections. Each each section has its pros and cons. And that's something that's a little bit of a problem with the film, though, is that this movie has a poor plot structure. It has poor pacing, and so it feels very long. Even though it's only 2 hours and 17 minutes, it feels like 4 hours. That's a problem. So let's get started with the opening first act. The way that they spare Barabbas is so unenthusiastic. Like, they're told, say who you want to be spared. And there's actually an interesting rumor where it turns out that Barabbas' first name might have been Jesus as well. And so there might have, you could actually make an interesting movie where it was an accident. And so they, maybe, that was interesting to learn, because I tried to see if there's anything to learn about this character in real life. And it turns out, nobody knows what happened to Barabbas. So that's what I said. This story has the potential for just epic proportions. And, but the way that in this movie that they ask for Barabbas, they're just like, Barabbas. Yeah, Barabbas. That's it. And meanwhile, in the movie Give Us Barabbas, that's why the movie's called Give Us Barabbas, is because the whole movie they're constantly like, give us Barabbas! Give us Barabbas! And they're cheering and chanting. And it's a very positive thing, as it turns out, that they cheer and they ask for this horrible guy to be spared so that he can have a second chance at life and he can redeem himself, and then Jesus can go suck an egg, basically. I mean, no, that's not what happens, but he wanted that to happen. And so I thought that it's a very positive story, because it shows that, I guess if you're a good person, that you'll help somebody else. If somebody else gets in trouble, they need your help. You can try to help them so that they can have a second chance to, not do something bad the next time. And so, pay it forward, all that type of stuff. And so I really didn't like that. The way that in this movie they're just like, oh yeah, Barabbas, yeah. And it's like, at some points in the movie, people act like they're confused why Barabbas was even spared. And so there's this character played by Ernest Borgnine, and he's mad that Barabbas is even still alive. It's really weird. And it completely goes against the story, which is that Jesus told his followers to say, give us Barabbas. That's another thing, too, is that I guess I don't know about any of this crap, any of the specific, the semantics of anything, but apparently there's some sort of a controversy over, the people who said give us Barabbas, over if they were evil or good or what. It's really weird. I don't understand it, but so maybe it feels like the filmmakers were playing it safe to make it okay, these guys aren't evil, they aren't, I don't know. It's really weird. They didn't really follow through on anything with that. So that's the main issue with this movie, is that the whole movie is supposed to be centered around why does Barabbas get spared and what does he do after that. But instead, the movie is just kind of him casually going through life, cheating death. And so that's kind of another element that I like, though, is that the whole movie, everyone else around him gets brutally killed, except for him. He cheats death over and over again. He's a badass, and he is so cool. He is one of the best characters in movie history, that's for sure. His fight near the end, which we'll get to, it is epic. And so in the first act as well, the filmmakers of the 60s, they were really badass as well. And so they waited until a solar eclipse happened just so that they could film the crucifixion scene during an eclipse. And it looks so beautiful. It looks so perfect. I was like, wow. These filmmakers, they not only had talent, they had balls. Because I don't think any filmmaker nowadays, anyone, even fucking the best ones, I don't think any filmmaker nowadays would have the balls to say, hey, studio, let's wait until the solar eclipse happens for real so that we can film the crucifixion sequence. Like, that is just, it's on another level of awesome. So Barabbas goes back to this, like, saloon, and that's another thing that's confusing of, like, I guess he was just a mercenary who was at this whorehouse all the time or something, and all these whores know him, but then he has a girlfriend, and it's like, is she really his girlfriend or what? Like, it's really confusing, and there's this weird relationship dynamic between them that we'll talk about. And they say that she's changed, and it turns out that she has. She is another person in the movie who is sad that he has not been killed instead of Jesus. Which completely, as I said, it goes against the whole message of the movie. And that's when we'll get to the negatives of the movie, okay? Because that is the biggest negative of the whole movie, is the real message of it, as it turns out, as it goes along. So, he sees his girlfriend, and then he rapes his girlfriend. I mean, he just got out of prison. He just got spared his life. He passes this whipping post where he sees there's blood all over the post from Jesus being, like, whipped for hours. And then the first thing he does is he goes home to the saloon or whatever, because the place looks like a Wild West saloon. The first thing he does is go home and rape his wife or his girlfriend. And it's like, what the hell? Like, why would you do that? Like, that's not a smart thing to do. And it's not a good thing to do either. Like, this guy, he doesn't really have any emotional regret over doing that as the movie goes on. It doesn't make sense. It's like, with this character, he doesn't really make much of a transformation at all in the movie. His only transformation is deciding that he should get killed at the end of the movie, because getting killed for your religion is good. That's the real message of the movie, as it turns out, as the movie goes on. And it's also, I hate to say it again, it is very reminiscent of Better Call Saul, because this character in Barabbas, he's bad, he's done a lot of bad things, and he's trying to become a good person. He's trying to just make his way, find his way in life, and at the end of the movie, the message is that, no, he was always bad, and he should just kill himself for his religion. It's like, it's very bizarre. And so then his girlfriend gets brutally killed, and definitely the saddest, most disturbing scene of the movie, where she gets stoned to death for no reason other than spreading Christianity. And that's another thing that's interesting about this movie, is the parallels to reality. You see a lot of times nowadays with cancel culture, with online stuff, where they say, people shouldn't be allowed to spread misinformation. And it's like, misinformation is basically code for, I disagree with this person, so that means everything they say is misinformation. And so, it's the same thing in this movie, where people get killed because they're spreading the word of Christianity. And it's very reminiscent of these social media companies banning people, kicking them off, Twitter saying, oh, you can't be on here anymore because you spread misinformation. Words are hurtful. Words are violence. Wah! It's the same type of shit with these Romans, these stupid Romans. And I'm saying, like, this movie, really the biggest thing about this movie for me, and somebody brought this up on IMDb as well, the biggest thing that this movie shows is how really doomed from the beginning the Romans were. I mean, this civilization, it is terrible. It is absolutely terrible. And the way that, they have this class system where, certain people are superior to others. They have slavery. They have gladiator matches, which people have brought up. Football, sports are just the modern day gladiator matches, just without killing for the most part, Obviously, outside of the sports, a lot of people die from their injuries and from suicides and stuff, but it's basically like modern day gladiator matches. And so this movie, if anything, to me, I would say the number one thing, if you want to watch this movie, the number one reason to watch it is really for the history, for the fact that the Romans are really a backward and they're really a terrible society, and they had a lot of issues that needed fixing, and they didn't fix them. And instead, it was almost like a Holocaust type of situation where in the middle of the movie, and as I said, Barabbas doesn't feel anything really for his girlfriend getting killed. He's more focused on later in the movie on Suck Cock, his friend, quote unquote. We'll talk about him. But there's this sulfur mine where slaves are taken there as like prisoners, quote unquote, and they're basically taken there to die. And you have thousands and thousands of people dying from being overworked, from being tortured, whipped, from sulfur burns. They become blind. They die and they fall from great heights. It's very, very creepy and depressing and dark. The whole sulfur mine sequence in the middle of the film, it feels a lot like a 1970s movie rather than a 1960s movie. It's very, very good. And Barabbas gets sent there because they are not allowed to kill him. But they do something interesting multiple times in the film where they're not allowed to kill him because he got spared for that festival. However, they're allowed to do, they can send him to the sulfur mine where it's very likely that he'll die. And later on in the film, they're not allowed to kill him, but they're allowed to take him to a gladiator arena to be forced to become a gladiator. So I thought that was interesting. And in the sulfur mines, it's really cool because in order to avoid sulfur burns, he starts putting this blindfold over his eyes. And there's this really, I don't know what's so cool about it, but it's really like a cool visual. This guy with this bandana, or this tie, covering his eyes. It's like a cool visual. I bet it's symbolic for something, for maybe the fact that he doesn't see Christianity or the light yet. Maybe it's because of that. And then he gets a new partner, because all the prisoners have to have partners, basically. And his first partner was blind because of sulfur burns, and he dies. So then Barabbas gets a new partner who is he is a really, girly boy. He looks like a fitness, a bodybuilding model from the 60s who, the way he smiles, he has this, girly haircut, and he's always, oiled up and greased up. And there's this really weird homoerotic dynamic between him and Barabbas, where it's they could be a couple, And it's weird too because they're even closer than him and his girlfriend ever were. Like, he doesn't bother to bury his girlfriend properly, but then with Suck Cock, because his name in the movie, it's like Sir Hawk or Sahawk, but I just think he should be called Suck Cock, because, I mean, we all know. He must, like, I'm telling you guys, like, it is bizarre. His character, he just comes out of nowhere, and, like, they are the perfect couple in a weird way in this movie. Like, their relationship is basically the center point of the movie. Like, the movie, if you think about it, it is all centered around his relationship with Suck Cock. If he was a girl, if he was actually played by a girl, like if you had Audrey Hepburn and she's playing Suck Cock, that'd be very nice, admittedly. that'd be a nice role, maybe. I don't know. Why did I say that? Never mind. But if you had a girl playing Suck Cock, it would clearly be like a romantic thing, and that's why I'm drawing parallels to Better Call Saul as well, because in the movie, later on they go to a gladiator arena, and Suck Cock is spreading Christianity to all the other gladiators. He's probably spreading herpes as well, and and he gets caught. The main guard, there's this guard guy, and he's always the guard the whole movie at these places. He looks like a chubby John Wayne. He even sounds like him, and he's got this really funny scene where he likes to whip people in the mines, and keep in mind, like, this is slavery. There's all sorts of people who got enslaved over time. It's not just one type of people. It's not just America. It's all over the place since the beginning of history. So, it's just people never talk about it. They only talk about one story. They only talk about, like, one place and one people. Like, I've never heard people talk about slavery in Rome, because this was really horrific, honestly. Like, I'm making fun, I'm making jokes. It was really horrific. It was very, very bad. And what was it? And so there's this part where Suck Cock is having like a girly battle with Barabbas. And then John Wayne comes over and he smiles and he's like, "You know what I like to see? I like to see mongrels fighting each other. I like to see you guys fight. I like to see you guys bareback. But you know what I like to see more? I like to see you guys work." And he just keeps on whipping these people over and over and over again. And it's like, why? Stop whipping them. If you want them to work, stop whipping them, you dipshit. Go back to making shitty cowboy movies and leave these guys alone. They gotta work. They gotta get the mine stuff. They gotta get sulfur. So that was a funny scene. And, but what happens is that Suck Cock, he gets executed in a really brutal way. And then they all make Barabbas feel sorry that he didn't get executed with his girly boy partner, his little twink, Suck Cock. I mean, they actually, like, it's so bizarre. It's like they're just friends, and then there's this whole thing where it's like, you should have volunteered to be executed with them. You should have done that. Suck Cock, he took it. He took the punishment for you. He got executed for you, and you wouldn't do it too. Wah! And so the movie becomes, weirdly enough, about why won't Barabbas die? Like, all these other people die. horrible ways around him. All these people of different kinds for different reasons. Meanwhile, Barabbas, he's just chilling. He's just chilling in the corner, doing whatever he wants. I mean, he at one point, the reason why he got arrested and got sent to the mines is because he was trying to get revenge on the people who killed his girlfriend, or people who encouraged the accusation or something, these two religious guys for Rome, and he got arrested because he was trying to kill them. So it's like he can just go around doing whatever he wants, basically, and he somehow gets away. And that's where the movie really takes a bad turn, is because as the movie goes on, you realize it's a really negative message, and it's a very creepy, gross message, because there's like this fetishization of pain and suffering. And so, all the characters who die, including Jesus, obviously, they're all celebrated because they suffered and were tortured and killed in these gross ways. When really, you should be saying, like, no, like, that's not good. Like, obviously, Jesus was good for doing that. But, like, with the girlfriend, for no reason, she's just killed. But it's like, oh, I'm so glad I suffered. I'm so glad that I took all this pain and suffering. And then with Suck Cock, he is, like, just aching to die. Like, he is just so happy he gets to die because he's dying for his religion. And it's really kind of sickening, because it's like, this is not a good mentality at all. Like, this is not good. It's weird because it goes against the movie, too. At one point, Rome is burning, and Barabbas thinks it would be a good idea to help Rome burn down, because some people are saying that Christians are the people burning down Rome. And then he meets with the Christians, because he gets arrested finally, again. And the Christians say, what? Like, we would never burn down Rome. That's not how we're going to make change happen. We're not going to destroy all these people's buildings. We're not going to kill people by burning their houses down. We're not like that at all. And it's like, to me, it's like, see, that's what Christianity, like, see, that they were like real Christians. The rest of the movie, you have all these weirdos, and they're just like so happy and proud that they're going to be killed in these cruel, sickening ways that are just so, talk about cruel and unusual punishment with this shit. So they survive the mines in a really cool way. The part in the sulfur mines is my favorite part of the movie, because, as I said, it really feels like a 70s movie or something. It's really cool. But then they're working in the fields. And now this is the only part in the movie where I really felt like Barabbas had any character arc, any character transformation. So there's a part where Suck Cock, he's got, they all have these necklaces, these coins that show that you're property of Rome, the Roman government, and Suck Cock etched a cross on the back of his. And Barabbas, after all that they've gone through together, he's like, etch one into mine. And I thought that was a very positive sequence, because it felt like, okay, after all this movie, after like an hour and 30 minutes, finally, Barabbas is going to actually make a transformation. But no, he really doesn't. He kind of does, but he kind of doesn't, because then he does something else that's stupid, and it's really frustrating. Like, I felt like that was a great scene. He's like, etch one into mine. And then Suck Cock like looks at him and goes, mmm. And he takes his necklace and he's like, ooh, and he's etching across into it. And but then this weird thing happens, which again gets contradicted. So let me take a drink because it's an epic movie, so it needs an epic review. It's like, sometimes I don't like it when Safi's doing these reviews because she'll make it go on too long because she rambles a lot. But then other times it's like, I just want to take a break from talking. I just talk. I feel like my whole mouth is going to fall off. And if I take any break, it's like, oh, that's what's called dead air. And it's like, oh, really? Really? That's shitty. Like, because I'm human and I have to take a breath, that's dead air? Fuck off with that shit. So, this rich couple, they pick Barabbas and Suck Cock. They pick them to come with them to Rome because they're lucky. The wife thinks that they're like Lucky Charms. And so they force them to come to Rome to be forced to become gladiators. And it's really weird, though, because then they execute, and they allow the execution of Suck Cock. And it's really weird because it's like, hold on a second. If these guys are good luck charms, why would you want one of them to get killed? Why would you even want to risk one of them getting destroyed? You know, like if you don't even think of them as people, if they're just good luck charms, why would you want to risk destroying good luck? Like, that's just the dumbest shit. So, they do this gladiator thing. That's another great part of the movie. But then it feels like it becomes a different movie almost. So, as I said, the movie has pacing issues because it always feels like it's a different story every 10 minutes. And when you get to this gladiator movie, there's this really creepy villain. He's basically the boss of the movie, because the movie also feels like a video game. So you have these different levels. Oh, what the fuck was that? Sorry, I just stepped on a rubber bracelet, and it sounded like a creepy monster. So, God, that was creepy. So Jack Palance, he plays this gladiator who willingly comes back to the gladiator Coliseum so that he can keep on killing people for fun. He thinks it's fun. And he's like their champion, and he's a real jackass. He's a real evil person. And it seems like he represents like the opposite of Christianity, in my opinion. He even has this maniacal laugh where he goes like, ha 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 ha, as he like kills people. It's really insane and creepy, because you just know that there were people like that back then in these gladiator matches, and you know how terrifying it must have been for other people who didn't want to be a part of it, you know, to go up against them and just know that they're going to die in this really painful way, where the way that they kill people in these gladiator matches is terrible too. They like stab them in the throat. It's ugh. Luckily in the movie it looks very cheap and fake, and you don't even see the stabbing or anything, but just thinking about that. So after Suck Cock gets killed, Barabbas, it seemed like that was going to be the climax, where Barabbas would defeat Jack Palance, and then he would go out and he would become a Christian and change. So what happens is the gladiator fight between him and Turlo, or I'm just going to call him Toyota, the Jack Palance character. It's a very intense fight, and it is probably one of the coolest movie fights I've ever seen. And in one of the gladiator matches, we see Sharon. She's in the crowd, and she's going, kill, 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 kill. And it's really fun because I don't know if it's a wig or not, but her hair is so big, and it looks like there's like a wig on her, and it's like wiggling all around, and she's like, kill, 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 and she's having a lot of fun. And it's so funny because when I got to that scene in the movie, I wasn't expecting to recognize her, but somehow I recognized her. She's just one in all these people in this crowd, and I could see that was her. I could see it. I could totally see that is Sharon, and she looks so beautiful, and it was so awesome to see her in this film. But I can't really say much more because it's only like 5 seconds or so. So, good job, great start. That's all I can really say. So after he defeats Jack Palance in the coolest fight ever, you think he's going to get out and he's going to become Christian. He's going to know why they said, give us Barabbas, and everything's going to be good. Well, instead, he gets out, and immediately he picks up his naked boyfriend, suck cock, and he goes to get him properly buried. And everyone there, they're all supposed to be Christian, but everyone there is like criticizing him for not getting killed too. So he basically told the Romans in this Colosseum, he lied and pretended like he's not a Christian, even though he started believing in those views. And so, he's this terrible person. He should have gotten killed with his boyfriend. It's very, very bizarre, because that's the whole message of the movie, as it turns out. Because then he gets arrested and he finally gets killed and he gets crucified. And he's just so happy that he gets crucified. It's really kind of sickening. It's like, I would never show this movie to a child. The way that this movie fetishizes pain, suffering, death, dying. That's another very odd thing of Sharon being in this movie. It is very odd because that's the whole message of the movie, is that as long as you die for what you believe in, it's perfectly okay. Even if you die a horrible, painful death, and you die in public in front of everyone, and you're made as an example, like cancel culture, with Suck Cock, they make an example out of him, and so it's kind of like with like all the news media outlets where they have all these Me Too articles, like with Johnny Depp, what they did to him in the media. They like do the same thing, but with like killing Suck Cock by throwing a spear at him. Just really gross. And so the whole message of the movie, like, it's creepy too, because you think about in Eye of the Devil, that was the same message, kind of, was that, and in that spell, because that was not a movie, that was a spell. In that spell, the whole movie is all about how this guy is going to be sacrificed willingly so that he can help grapes grow at this vineyard that his family is in charge of. And in this movie, Barabbas, it's all about how eventually Barabbas lets himself get killed for Christianity. For some reason, like just for Christianity, like there's no real reason. Like at one point too, Barabbas even says, what would me being killed do for anyone? Like, what would that do to solve anyone's problems whatsoever? And there's no answer to that at all. So it's really weird. I don't like it at all in terms of the message and stuff like that. But the movie is very entertaining, mostly. But it does get boring at some points. The performances are superb. I think they're all pretty much like Oscar-worthy performances. The music is really, really good. So in general, it's fine. What's funny, though, is that all the things that Give Us Barabbas has, this movie doesn't. And then all the things that this movie doesn't have, Give Us Barabbas has. And so if you combine those two movies together, you have the perfect Barabbas movie. For my food rating, I'm going to take another drink. Because maybe if I take a drink, it'll go faster. So one of my favorite foods now, but my favorite food as a kid, was chicken dinner, which was chicken, corn, mashed potatoes, gravy. Very simple but delicious meal. A lot of stuff there to eat. Very, very good. This movie is like, what if the chicken was dry? What if the mashed potatoes were chunky and crumbly and dry? And what if the corn didn't have any juice, but the gravy was perfect? That's what this movie is like. It's like it needed some tinkering. It needed some editing. You know, they needed to go back and say, okay, we have some great moments in this movie. The gladiator fight moment, the moment with the stoning, very, very sad. And that's another thing, is that this is what I mean. There was no reason for these characters to die other than to have a message in the movie that you should die so that you can show your support. Like, it really, really weird. I mean, that's another thing. You can this movie's very phony. Like, you can tell that this is probably not what happened. It's very, very contrived, very fake and Hollywoody. And honestly, the creepiest thing is that although this movie disguises itself as being pro-Christian, it being very, like, you know, it's an Easter movie, it's a Christian movie, it's very, yeah. This movie is like a pagan masterpiece. It is like a pagan fest, the whole movie, with the stuff that goes on. Like, you could do a whole video just talking about, like, I really think the people who made this movie are all pagan by the way that, like, this movie was designed. This, you know, because I've heard from pagans talking about, like, how the difference between pagans and Christians is that pagans aren't afraid to die. And, you know, they're proud, they're really happy, they're excited to go into battle. And then you have Christians, and, you know, they don't want to do that because, you know, they're afraid that they might be judged after they die and all this stuff, or that, you know, they won't be this or that, reincarnated. So it was weird because this movie felt like, you know, like, why is this pagan message being spread in this supposed Christian movie where, you know, everyone and their brother and mother and sister and son and daughter is proudly getting killed and executed in these gruesome ways, so that Christianity can be supported or something. Like, it's really vague. They never really give a reason for why they would be proud to die for their beliefs. I mean, it's not like with, okay, I don't want to get into real history with stuff for the most part. I don't want to, because that'll just take hours to do. So I thought that was creepy. I mean, there's a lot more stuff too. I just thought about that though, like, ugh, that's very questionable. Certainly very questionable of why the people they had in the movie too, and the cast. Because as people have said, really the only known actor in the movie is Anthony Quinn, the main character. Everyone else really isn't a big name star. I mean, you had a lot of known actors, but the only really popular one was Anthony Quinn. He's the most well-known one. And so you have to wonder of like, why were these certain players picked? Same thing with Eye of the Devil, where, you know, the person who they cast to play the dad in that movie, he looked like a certain person's dad in real life. And so very, very weird. So anyways, please like this video, comment, tell me what you thought of Barabbas and of Sharon in Barabbas. Did you guys like seeing her for a whole 5 seconds in this movie? I wish she was in the whole thing. And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest movie reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.